out of just that group of friends, I think there were probably 2 or 3 companies that have reached over $500 million in valuation, and I would have been investing when they were like under 5. All right, let's talk about angel investing. So my angel investing life started truly about 7 years ago, when I first moved to San Francisco. So I moved to San Francisco. I get a job as a product manager at an idea lab called Monkey Inferno. So PM, kind of a boring job. PM, but not at a boring company. This was a very interesting company. It was a company that builds companies, so an idea lab. And I was the only product manager there. I was the only product guy. Everybody else was an engineer. And I'm making $120,000 a year. And so I don't think of myself like an investor, right? 120K, living in San Francisco, paying California taxes. You're not like rolling in money at all. I had a little bit of money saved up from my previous company, but again, I didn't think of myself as an investor. So the first lesson of angel investing was think of yourself as an investor, because those first 3 or 4 years I was in San Francisco, I had the opportunity. I was doing mastermind dinners. I was organizing dinners, and my friends were the founders of other companies. And if I had just stopped working on my company, if I had stopped, quit my job, and all I did was just write 20K checks to all of those friends, I might have needed 250K, but I would have turned that into at least $5 million just off the success of those friends' companies. And I was helping them, and I thought a lot of their ideas were good. I thought a lot of them would succeed. I remember I talked to the founders of Calm early on when Calm was struggling. They couldn't even raise their next round. You didn't know what was going to happen. It was just kind of Alex toiling away. And I remember thinking, hey, this guy's like really committed to this, and this guy's really creative. And I think he's right about the world. Like, I think he's right that a lot of people will want this. A lot of people will want to have more calm in their life. And I think more people will meditate. And, there was, obviously it wasn't clear cut, but I would have bet on that company. And I would have bet on 6 or 7 of those companies. And several of them did really well. Calm now is a multi-billion-dollar company. So out of just that group of friends, I think there were probably 2 or 3 companies that have reached over $500 million in valuation, and I would have been investing when they were like under 5. So the lesson I learned 4 years later was, why the hell wasn't I investing in these guys' companies? I believed in them. I had access to them. I just didn't think of myself as an investor. The excuse I gave myself was I didn't have the capital. But the reality was, if you are creative enough, if you're resourceful enough, if you're persuasive enough, if you're determined enough, you can get capital. You can get any resource you need. And so that actually brings me to my first angel investment. So the next company I got really excited about, fast forward 4 or 5 years, I still don't, have, millions of dollars in the bank to go write these checks. And I see this company called Lambda School. And I had been thinking about a product like this or a project like this to go do myself. And when I saw it, I was like, whoa, this guy's doing a much better version of what I was thinking might work, something I thought about doing. So I started calling the guy, started talking to him, and I told him, I want to invest in your company, which was true, not a lie. I did want to invest in this company. But I didn't tell him I've never invested in any company. So I definitely withheld that. And I said, tell me about your company. I want to invest. And he started sharing his slide deck, sharing the materials. And I'm like, I have to find a way to invest in this company. And I thought to myself, okay, I need to invest 25K in this company. Okay, no problem. I can sell a stock that I own, or I can just take some of my savings and do this. One company was never going to be a problem. But with angel investing, you need a portfolio of companies because you're investing in early stage startups. This is extremely high risk of failure. So in a portfolio of 10 companies, you would expect some kind of distribution where you're going to get 4 or 5 of the companies to go to 0, 2 or 3 of the companies to return somewhere between 1 and 3x. And then hopefully, you end up with 1 or 2 companies that actually break out and do 10x plus. Ideally, you get to something that does 1,000x plus or 10,000x plus. Those are the early investors in Uber, for example. So anyways, I always knew I could invest in one company, but you need about 30 bets to really be, an angel investor, to have enough of a portfolio where you give yourself a chance to succeed. So, I was sitting there doing the math, and I said, if I need to invest $25,000 in 30 companies, I need $750,000. I didn't have that. So that's why I didn't think of myself as an investor. But what I did was very smart. I got to give myself credit on this one. When I knew I wanted to invest in Lambda School, I said, okay, how do I get the money to invest in this? And so I talked to a friend and I said, who I knew invested, and I said, hey, I have this company that I think is really great. I want to introduce you to them. And in general, I see a bunch of companies that are really interesting, and I know you like to invest. Do you want to do a deal where, I can sort of be a scout? I can be a sort of a venture partner, an entrepreneur who can help you with your investments, and we can set up a deal. So here's what, the first deal we set up was, cool, any deal we invest in, I get 10% carry, meaning I don't have to put any capital in. I take zero financial risk, and I get 10% of the upside after he's paid back his investment. So it's not huge returns, right? Like Sequoia Scouts. Sequoia is one of the biggest venture capital firms. They had a scout program, and they gave 50% to their scouts. They were extremely, extremely generous, so 45%, something like that. So this wasn't that, but then again, Sequoia didn't pick me. They didn't even know who the hell I was. So I took what I could get. And I realized in order to get into good companies, if you talk to one company, they usually want to know, what other companies have you invested in? And so I knew I needed to start building a portfolio of labels. So a bunch of logos that I could point to and say, yep, I invested in that company, I invested in that company, and that company. And you would be in good company if you were with those companies, right? That's the core idea. So I said, let me start building this portfolio. This guy's willing to put up all the cash. I get a piece of the upside. Let's do it. So we wrote the check into Lambda School, and I'm very grateful to him for, bankrolling me in that. And I think it was a, fair enough deal. And so we invested when it was, it was still a pretty expensive deal, because by the time I organized this, the valuation had gone up about 3x. So I lost a 3x return just in the time it took me to get, sort of a backer in on the deal. If it was just my own money and I could have invested after that first phone call, I would have. But anyways, it's gone up about 10 times in value since then. So that investment, which is illiquid, but that's the sort of paper valuation of that company today. So that was the first dipping my feet in the water. And I said, all right, that was good. And I made a deal with myself, which is, cool, I'm going to try to invest in about 5 to 10 companies per year. This is what my goal was. I said, but, I think 5 is the right sweet spot, unless I'm, if I have free time, I'll go do 10 a year. But I'll do 5 a year, and whether it's my own money or other people's money, now I'm thinking of myself as an investor. So that'd be the first thing I would say to you guys, is if you ever want to invest, if you ever want to be an angel investor and play this extremely high-risk, high-reward game of startup investing, the number one advice I would give to you is, don't wait till you're rich to do it. Because at that point, the financial returns, it'll just be a part of a broader portfolio. It's not going to be that exciting. But if you really want to do this, start thinking of yourself as an investor from day one and find ways to access the capital. There are a ton of people out there with capital, myself included, who would love for you to be bringing them deal flow and would happily give you carry on any deal that they invest in. I remember there was a guy named Sarush, who was a 13-year-old kid living in Canada, and he used to use our product. We built this website called Blab. It's like kind of this Zoom type of product. But he used to use Blab all the time, and he came to me and he said, hey, I don't even remember what our arrangement was, but basically I told him, I said, you want to learn about this stuff? I want you to go scout out 3 companies a week. Email me the best one, the best one that you saw, and why you think it would be a good investment, why you think it would be a bad investment, and your kind of overall recommendation. And one of those companies, now several years later, he's I think 20 years old now, so 7 years later, the very first company he sent me is a company called Applyboard that just raised money at a $1.1 billion valuation. He brought that email back up to me. He emailed me again being like, hey, why didn't you invest in this thing I told you about? And I was like, I don't know, you're 13. I didn't believe you. But yeah, there's a bunch of examples like that where you can bring deals to other people, and if they invest, you can get carry. And you could bring it to multiple people. So you don't have to be exclusive with any one person. You could say, great, these 5 people all agree that if I bring them a great deal, they'll give me a slice of the upside. Great, you could do that with five different, more established investors at any given time. Okay, enough on that.